Wraith by William Toney. Chapter 23. The Unraveling Web. The Informant's Report. The air in Wright's office was suffocating as his informant finished the report. "I saw her, Mr. Wright. The girl who's been seen with the Wraith. She was in the park, near the old fountain. She took something. I followed her, but it felt like I wasn't the only one there. Like something was watching me." Wright's jaw tightened, his grip on the pendant around his neck tightening reflexively. "What did she take?" The informant hesitated, his face pale. "Some kind of egg, silver, with an eagle engraved on it." Eris, perched languidly on the edge of Wright's desk, snapped to attention. Her playful smirk faded, and her golden eyes narrowed. "A silver egg," she repeated, her tone sharp. "Did she open it?" "I don't know," the informant stammered. "I didn't get close enough." Eris stood abruptly, her golden gown shimmering as she moved. "Charles, send your men to the park. I need to know if anything else is there." Wright frowned. "Why the sudden urgency? What does this egg have to do with—" Eris cut him off with a cold glare. "Do as I say or find another patron to fulfill your ambitions." Wright's mouth snapped shut and he nodded, waving his hand to dismiss the informant. As the man left, Eris turned back to Wright, her expression unreadable. "This changes things," she muttered almost to herself. "Allistor isn't the only one playing the long game." Aaron in the park's shadows. The park was eerily quiet under the pale moonlight, the overgrown paths weaving through shadows that seemed alive. Aaron stood near the fountain, his presence blending with the surrounding darkness. Allistor's voice echoed in his mind, cold and mocking. "They're coming for her, Aaron. You've left breadcrumbs, and now the wolves are circling." Aaron's eyes scanned the park. "I won't let them get to her." Allistor chuckled. "Good, but remember, the world doesn't reward hesitation. Make it count." The rumble of an engine interrupted their conversation. A black SUV pulled up at the park entrance, and 4 of Wright's men stepped out. Their flashlights pierced the darkness, their movements cautious but determined. Aaron melted into the shadows, his presence undetectable, as the men approached the fountain. "This is the spot," one of them said, his voice low. "The girl was here earlier." "Spread out," another ordered. "We need to find whatever she took, or anything else that might explain this Wraith nonsense." Aaron's jaw tightened, anger bubbling beneath the surface. These men weren't just Wright's lackeys. They were parasites, preying on the city just like the rest of the corrupt system he'd been dismantling piece by piece. Tonight, they would learn what it meant to fear. As the men fanned out, Aaron extended his senses, feeling the ebb and flow of the park's natural energy. The shadows stretched and twisted at his command, creeping along the ground like living tendrils. The first man paused, his flashlight flickering unnaturally. "What the—" His voice trailed off as the shadows rose around him, coiling like serpents. He let out a strangled cry as they pulled him into the darkness, his flashlight clattering to the ground. "Mark!" another man called, his tone panicked. "Where are you?" The shadows surged, snatching the second man's feet out from under him. He hit the ground hard, his flashlight spinning wildly as the shadows dragged him toward the fountain. The remaining 2 men huddled together, their flashlights sweeping frantically across the park. "This place is cursed," one of them shouted. "We need to get out of here." Aaron stepped into view, his figure cloaked in shadow, his eyes glowing faintly. "Leaving already?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. The men froze, their terror palpable. "You're him," one whispered. "The Wraith." Aaron advanced slowly, his presence suffocating. "You hunt those who can't defend themselves," he said, his voice like a distant storm. "Now the hunter becomes the prey." With a flick of his wrist, the fountain erupted, water spraying in jagged arcs as the shadows coalesced into jagged tendrils, each one aimed at the remaining men. One man dropped his flashlight and bolted, but Aaron's shadowy tendrils blocked his path, forcing him back toward the fountain. "Mercy!" the other man screamed, dropping to his knees. "Please, have mercy." Aaron's expression hardened. "Did you show mercy to those you've hurt? To those you've hunted?" The man's sobs were his only answer. Allistor's voice echoed in Aaron's mind, cold and amused. "Delicious, isn't it? Their terror, their helplessness. Do you see how easily they break?" Aaron hesitated, his grip on the shadows faltering for a moment. "Enough," he said aloud, his voice steady. "They've learned their lesson." With a wave of his hand, the shadows retreated, leaving the men trembling on the ground. Aaron stepped closer, his voice low and commanding. "Tell Wright to stay away from Lilah, and if I see you again, I won't be so lenient." The men scrambled to their feet, their terror driving them back to the SUV. As the vehicle sped away, Aaron exhaled, the tension in his body easing slightly. "You're holding back," Allistor chided. "How long do you think Mercy will protect you?" Aaron ignored him, his thoughts turning to Lilah. He had to protect her, no matter the cost. Jason and Eris, the second step. Jason sat on the rooftop of an old warehouse, his knife glinting under the faint moonlight. The memory of Eris's proposal lingered in his mind, her words seductive and insistent. "You're wasting potential," she had said. "Take the pendant, and I'll make you unstoppable." The idea was intoxicating, but Jason wasn't a fool. He needed to understand what he was dealing with before making any moves. "Second thoughts?" Eris's voice broke through his thoughts as she materialized beside him, her golden eyes gleaming with amusement. Jason didn't flinch, his gaze steady. "What happens if I take the pendant?" Eris smiled, stepping closer. "You'll become my avatar, my chosen. The power you've only dreamed of will be yours." Jason's jaw tightened. "And Wright?" Eris's smile turned cold. "Wright is a stepping stone, nothing more. He's served his purpose. It's time for someone stronger to take his place." Jason considered her words carefully. "And if I say no?" Eris's expression darkened. "Then you'll remain a shadow, a pretender. But if you're smart, you'll realize this is your chance to be something more." Jason met her gaze, his resolve hardening. "I'll get the pendant." Eris's smile returned, sly and victorious. "Good boy."